Hi there. Welcome back to the Complicated Kids podcast. I'm your host, Gabriele Nicolet. I am a toddler whisperer, a speech therapist, and a parent coach. And today I'm joined by Dr. Jaclyn Halpern. Jaclyn, welcome.
Thank you so much.
I am maybe excited is the wrong word, but we're going to talk about some hard things today. And so that feels very timely and very good. But first, before we do that, tell us something about yourself and the work that you do.
Sure. So, as you said, my name is Dr. Jaclyn Halpern. I am a licensed psychologist. My pronouns are she, her. I am a partner in Playful Therapy Connections, and we are a neurodiversity affirming practice based in Maryland, but we see people all over the DMV. We are also PsyPact for those of us who are psychologists. We do testing, we do therapy, we do inclusion coaching. We are virtual, we are in person, we are hybrid. So we provide a lot of services, and we're very much centered on what you call orchid kids or neurodivergent kiddos who are wonderful and complex. And we also work with adults with similar needs and a little bit of everything for everyone.
I love it. And so when we were sort of talking about what's the direction we wanted to go, you brought up a topic, and I said, yeah, let's do this. And that is how to talk to children, complicated kids, people who might be sensitive about hard things in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we're not going to get specific, but
Yeah.
at any given time, there are many hard things happening in the world
Yeah.
that either touch us directly or don't. And so, what are some things that parents and caregivers and teachers and people who love sensitive children,
Yeah.
how do we do this? What do we need to know?
Yeah, great question. And I want to even like broaden this, like, talking about the world situations and safety and feelings around those, but also things that might be happening in people's, individual lives, illness, right, death, changes that are happening in their family system, they're moving. Right? This applies to all the hard conversations, including the big ones. That are very timely right now. And it's a question that's coming up a lot right now. So, when I think about our complex kiddos and our neurodivergent kiddos in particular, often there's a lot of anxiety. And there is also often a very strong justice sensitivity as well. So, really like, this does not feel right to me, maybe something that they're experiencing in their bodies, in their brains, and it can be very overwhelming. And that is something to understand that may be not fully unique to our orchid kids, our neurodivergent kids, but even more so, right? Where those feelings might be heightened. Our nervous systems are turned up even more because they are more sensitive. And so our kiddos might be struggling a lot when they are going through change, when they are seeing things happening around them that don't feel right, when there is something that is hurting. And so I think that's an important thing for caregivers to start with is that recognition that nervous system dysregulation may be higher and the desire to help and do something might be even stronger in these kiddos. And so, the main thing where I begin for parents is you got to take care of yourself first. In order to have these conversations, you have to be in the space to do it. So sometimes our kids bring them to us, right? And we may not be ready for it. And that is where we can take a breath. We can do a little grounding in the moment, like, okay, I'm going to look around. I'm going to notice, like everything that I see that is red around me and just bring myself into the moment because I don't feel ready for this conversation. But our kids are needing to have it. And so we can begin by listening, right? We put away the devices, we give our full attention, and we hear what they're bringing us. And maybe we're not ready to respond yet, but what we can give is that openness and that connection and that empathy of like, wow, this is, something that you're feeling, really big, even if we're not ready to respond yet.
I want to just pause here to point out what you are saying is that parents who are asked a difficult question do not have to answer right away.
That's right.
In fact, there are two steps before you answer the question, if you even do in that moment. And one is set your own barometer, take your own temperature, breathe, do whatever grounding, whatever that means to you, get yourself inside your body so that you are not out, up and out, as we some of my friends like to say.
Yeah.
Um, And then just listen
Hmm.
without feeling like you're going to solve some kind of problem. This is not a problem to
Yep,
be solved. Yeah.
exactly. That's where we begin, right? That's our first step. When our kids bring it to us, we can listen and they can see, that we are there with them, that we are connecting, that we are empathic. It also gives us the opportunity. What do they know? What do they know that they're getting right? Where might there be some misinformation that we are able to correct, when we're ready to talk? It also gives us the moment to think about like, okay, this is really hard for me too, which our kids might be picking up on. They may know that we are struggling with whatever this hard thing is as well, be it personal or world, or they may know that we're off kilter. Many of us are neurodivergent ourselves if we have neurodivergent kiddos, and we're feeling it too. And they may be picking up on that more than anything else. And so this is a moment to, kind of get ourselves in the space to connect with them and be there and listen first, right?
I want to add something here, and I suspect
Yeah.
if you're listening, if one is listening to this podcast, one already knows this. And um, we do not have to, we as the adults, do not have to present um, a rosy face, a
Mhm.
perfect veneer. We don't have to manage everything uh, just so and be tidy about it. And what I don't mean by that is what we also don't have to do is allow our kids to see us falling apart
Right. Yes.
uncontrollably. Within that space, there's a lot of ground for showing emotion.
Yeah.
And I actually just want to, I do want to jump in here with a personal example, which is, my father died 14 years ago, quite suddenly. Um, and my children were 7 and 4 at the time. And that was very challenging in the moment to know kind of how much to tell them, when to tell them
Mhm.
what, and then also to manage my own feelings of grief and
Yeah.
loss and confusion and all of that. And I don't know whether I did it well or not. What I will say is, in contrast to many of us adults, and the ways in which we were raised, I did allow my children to watch me cry
Yeah.
and
Oh
to
yeah.
be sad
Yeah.
about my
Yeah.
father dying. That's the thing that
Absolutely.
makes people sad.
Yeah.
And if I had shown up, you know, and everything's fine and everything's fine and everything's fine and you're fine and I'm fine and everything's fine, they would have, number one, they would have clocked it immediately.
Right. Exactly. They would
Number
have picked up on
two,
something not being right.
something not being right. And number two, right, that sort of disingenuous, that clash of what one is saying and what one is feeling is particularly noticeable for complicated kids and highly sensitive kids and all of these kids that we're talking
Yeah.
about. And so anyway, just an example of
Yeah.
sort of that wiggle room of like, we don't have to have it all together. And also maybe we don't want to have them like see us
Yeah.
panicking, right?
And what I would say here, right? Like our neurodivergent kids in particular, but kids in general are really good at knowing when we're pretending. So we can't hide it most of the time. They're going to know. And, for many of them, if they don't know what's going on, they're going to think they are the problem and they did something wrong. So it is better not to fake it and for them to know something's up. And maybe it's appropriate to tell them what it is. Maybe it's not. Depends on the situation and where you are with it. But it is okay to say, I'm having a hard time. I see that you see that. This is not about you. I'm going to talk to, you know, co-caregiver or friend or whomever, right? They're supporting me. I've got it. I'm taking care of myself. So you let your kids know they don't have to take care of you in that moment. And you can let them know, I need a little while, but I'll be back in a few minutes. I'm going to be here to help with the things that I always do. Or if you're not in that space, who is that trusted person who is going to step in so that they know that they're safe and they're steady. And then, they may want to do something for you. You can welcome, like, of course, I would love a hug right now. But the goal is to, let them be kind and supportive without feeling like you are putting the burden on them, the responsibility, or leaving them wondering if you are somehow upset because of them.
It's a great point. Yeah, because young children will always assume it's their fault. That's how they stay
Yeah.
safe.
Yeah,
What can I
exactly.
do to stay in this family?
Exactly, exactly. And so, that's an important reason to be, unmasked and to be clear about where you are. Yes, if you really need to fall apart, if you can avoid it, obviously stepping away and getting that support somewhere else so that your kids don't need to see you at that level of dysregulation. But if you do, if you don't have a good moment, you come back and you explain, hey, I had a rough time. I wish I'd handled it differently, but I wanted you to know, like I got the help that I needed. I'm in a better place now.
Yeah.
So you can always go back and, it's not really a need for repair necessarily in that situation, but to let them know that you've got it under control.
Yeah. Okay, so we're grounding, we're
Yes.
listening, we're not
Yep.
feeling a need to fix.
hmm
And then
And so, in those moments when our kids bring it to us, that's where we can say, you know what? Thank you for bringing this to me. I'm so glad you shared this. I need a little time to think about this and to get you some information so that I can make sure that I'm telling you the right things. Let's come back and talk again and, give them a time. And if they're at an age and the topic is appropriate for them to do that research with you, you can invite them to do it, right? If you really are going to fact find. But if it's not, or if you're just not ready, it's okay to say that you need that time and you're going to step away. On the flip side, sometimes our kids, are not the ones bringing it to us. We decide, hey, I need to talk to my child about this because they're going to be hearing about this somewhere else. And I don't want them to have misinformation, or I don't want them to hear about this from someone else first and have questions that, feel unanswered. I want to present this to them. And so then you have a little bit more time to plan ahead. And in those moments, I think you start with, well, okay, which child am I talking to? Who is this child? And do I have different kids in my, who I need to talk to about this that may need to hear different things because of their sensitivity, their developmental level, their age? So you might be having different conversations in the family. But what's the information I want to share? What are my values and my beliefs underneath this that inform the point of view that I'm bringing here? If there are other caregivers, are we on the same page? Do we want to share the same things, right? Let's talk about that first before we take it to the kids because we've got the time to do it.
I have to pause you here because I'm imagining I mean this is such a well-regulated place to come from. Like
Yeah.
this is a really well thought out kind of structured,
Yeah.
measured approach. And my first thought as you were talking was like, oh my God, it seems like that takes a really long time and a lot of work.
Yeah, it
And so,
can. It
yeah,
can.
good.
Not always, right? And this is the benefit, right? We've got the times where we've got to have that conversation urgently, and then we've got the times that we can plan. But it maybe just be a quick check in with your partner, right? Like, hey, I want to have this conversation. Is there anything that you want me to touch on, or do you have any concerns,
Mhm.
right? And you probably know, depending on the topic, what your value system is here. And obviously, there's going to be differences. If we're talking about illness or death, maybe there are different religious beliefs. If we're talking about world events, we probably already know where we stand on them. So we don't need to do a lot of soul searching as we're bringing that to the table.
Mhm. Talk about because children are fairly black and white,
hmm
good guys and bad guys.
Yeah.
And so talk about and the things that are running through my head, right, are and some of them are political, right? It's easy to couch sort of things in black and white in terms of
Yeah.
they're good guys, we're bad guys, or vice versa. Disease, also a way in which we say that
Yeah.
the disease is bad and this is good. Like talk a little bit
Yeah.
about navigating nuance within this like good guy,
That
bad
is a
guy
great
thing.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is actually where we can kind of make it not about the situation and talk more about like science and history and what we know there to bring to the table. Well, let's talk about, what government is and why it exists. Let's talk about, migration and why people migrate and how long that's been going on historically.
Mhm.
Let's talk about, what disease is and how it grows and why and where it comes from and, biology in general. Obviously, we have to think again about, how old is my child? Where is my child developmentally? How interested are they going to be in this? But we can set that stage to really, make it a little bit less scary about the moment and more broad to this is part of our world. There's something natural here. And when we're talking about illness and death, it's a little easier with something like that when it's not human to human, right?
Mhm.
Like this is something that is natural. We see death in nature. We watch the cycle all of the time with seasons, right? We see this happening, and we can really make it less scary by talking about how it has always been and always will be, and we see it over and over again. Again, we have to think about what our own beliefs around that as well, but we can normalize in that sense and pull back from that immediate need that feels so tight and so heavy, to just make it a little bit easier to take it in. When we normalize, when we generalize, it feels less acute.
That's such a good point. And it actually brings up two things that I often tell my clients, which is if your brain is telling you there's only two ways to do this, or worse still, one way to do this, you know your brain is lying to you. You need to take a break and come back later.
Yeah, yeah,
And I guess the second one flew out of my head because I can't remember what it was. But to that end, oh, if
yeah,
we're in a hurry, if you're in a hurry to fix this problem, you've got to take some time.
yeah. You got to slow down. And I want to talk to your point for a minute about like the good guys and the bad guys.
Mm.
I think what's really hard when we're talking about some of the things happening in the world is that the people acting all tend to think that they are the good guys,
Mm-hmm.
that they are in the right. And so, what might those motivations be? Why might someone who feels so differently than us think they are right? We don't have to agree with that, but we can encourage that curiosity and that openness to maybe encourage communication and actually build bridges so that we are not on such opposite sides. And depending on our children, we haven't gotten to this yet, but part of what we can land on is like, what action can we take in the moment that feels like maybe it doesn't solve the problem, but helps our kids feel like they're doing something, right? And maybe part of that is like the curiosity about what's happening on the other side and how to build bridges. Or maybe it's not at all. Maybe it is, protesting in some way. Maybe it's writing letters. Maybe it is going and volunteering somewhere. There's all kinds of things. But when we can't give a lot of reassurance and when things feel so big and out of our control, there are ways still to take steps to feel like we are doing something towards what we believe in and what that, justice is when we're talking about that larger world picture.
Back to this, like, I'm in a hurry
Mm-hmm.
from the adults.
Yep.
Um, and because I just think it bears repeating in
Yeah.
terms of like frying nervous systems,
Yeah.
fraying nervous systems, which comes
Yeah.
before frying, right? And then also this notion that like again, I think this like we're in a hurry. We're in a hurry to take action. We're in a hurry to solve problems. We're in a hurry to do something. And again, whether that's at home with like a diagnosis of some kind
Right.
or in the world with like the latest stuff that, the
Yeah.
news. Um, talk talk more about
Yeah.
adults protecting their own nervous systems because I just
Yeah.
think it's like we need to hear this on repeat.
Yeah. So picture a yellow light, right? You can slow down. And sometimes that image, and if you're not good at visualizing, print one out so that you can see it. Remind yourself, here's a stoplight. The yellow is where I want to be. I can slow down. Now, there are going to be exceptions to this. You have a critical moment at home. Someone is, visibly ill. Something tragic happens. There's something you're going to have to do in that moment, and you're not going to have time to think. And, like you do the best you can. And you may not be your best self. Your kids may see something hard. We can come back later and help to take care of that. There are therapists out there who can help with that. So it is not, a done deal in that moment. But assuming that it is not, 911 level urgency, that yellow light, slow down. This feels urgent. Kind of like what we're saying with the kids, get yourself some empathy. Right? Who can you talk to first about how you're feeling? Maybe you're talking to yourself. Maybe you're talking to a friend, a partner. Maybe you're talking to a therapist. Where can I get some support with this before I bring it to my kids? What steps do I personally want to take to, learn and understand what's happening? What actions do I want to take? Right? How can I care for myself here? So we haven't gotten to it yet about the kids, but when we're having the conversation, we want to give them enough information that It's the basics of what we want them to know, not more, right? Kind of bite sized. And then see what questions they ask and then give them more based on that, right? And again, age, developmental level is going to inform that. But we also want to give them space to process. They may not have a reaction right away. They may need time. They may need to go play, draw, read, write, whatever it is that they do to process. Turn on music and dance and scream. We can do those same things as adults. What do we need to process? When we are terrified of the world, when we're sad because someone is sick or dying, right? We are in pain too. We can look for the resources to take care of ourselves. We can lean on the people around us or, tune into what does my body feel best with, right? So then we get into conversations about like spoon theory. And if you're feeling low on spoons, right? How do you take care of yourself? How do you rebuild? Just like our kids, you're going to have moments where you have fewer spoons, where you are dysregulated, where you feel like you are out of resources. Okay, how do you then reset? What do you lean into? Is it rest and relaxation? Is it exercise? Is it doing something that you're really passionate about, right? What are those things for you? You may not need to have that conversation urgently with your child. You may have a few days before you need to have that conversation. And if you are not in a space to have it, maybe who else can, right? Who do you trust to have that conversation if you can't?
It's the way that you're talking about this, I hope the listeners will feel it. There's such an attitude of, you can totally do this. It's okay.
Yeah.
And, and this is not how you're saying it, but let's like, even if you don't get it right, which there isn't any getting it right, but even if you end up needing to go back and judge something, that is absolutely allowed.
We are human too. And again, it's good for our kids to see that. And, we want to give them, of course, we want to reassure all the time. Like that's our natural instinct. Don't worry about it. It's okay. That's actually not helpful, right? That shuts down their emotional reaction. It may be inaccurate, right? So better that we fumble through it and do the best we can honestly than try to shut it down. And that connection, that redirection, that empathy, these are things that we can give, in the moment, even if we don't have the answers and the fix. And so we may say something and be like, you know what, I looked at that and I got it wrong. Or I said this to you and you know what, I don't think I agree with that anymore. I wasn't thinking as clearly as I wanted to in that situation. My son, who's 10, loves to come to me with these hard things. He hears something at school and it's just like, Mom, I heard about this today. And it's like, okay, I was not ready for that conversation. I was hoping we were not going to have it. All right, tell me what you know. And that's another thing, right? Begin by asking, what do you know, right? Because they again, may have accurate information, more information than you want them to have, less information than you think that they might have.
And I want to jump in here. I want to jump in here. When they say something that's wrong, just hear them out all the way until they're done.
Yes. Yeah. And then like the other thing that helps here, once you've heard what they know, then that also gives you information of what you can then respond to, what you want to correct, what you want to say more of, what you don't want to talk about. But again, not that false reassurance. You can look for safety in the moment. Like, yeah, this is a really hard thing that's going on right now. What can you do to feel safe? Who are the people around you that you trust to help you when you feel like this? What are the objects in the house, right? Many of our neurodivergent kids have safe objects, right? What helps you to feel secure? And then I like to go Mr. Rogers, look for the helpers, right? Who's out there, who's helping? Maybe they're not fixing the problem, but they're helping. And then we kind of get into that. And how can we be helpers? What can we do here to feel like we're doing something positive? And that can make a big difference too.
How are parents supposed to handle what is the best way to deal with that black and white thinking on the part of children, right? So we say, who are the helpers? How can we be helpful? Well, it's just terrible. We can't.
Yeah.
And there are a fair number of kids who will say it that way. right?
Yeah.
And think about it that way.
Right. So reflecting that, oh, it feels terrible. It feels like we can't help it all. Gosh, feels so stuck, huh? Right? Like being empathic with where they are, allowing all those feelings, all those reactions to exist initially, right? Be with them there first. Then, when you have spent some time there, when you have given them an opportunity to reflect further, you know, I was thinking about it and I had an idea or two that I thought might help us feel like we're doing something. It's not going to fix it all, but it may help us feel like we're doing something. I'm wondering if you'd like to hear them. And so
Mhm.
you offer it. You don't push it on them, but you offer it. And then maybe they want to hear it and maybe they don't. Maybe they shut it down, but it can begin kind of a back and forth brainstorming, right? And it is okay if they don't want to take action, if they do feel helpless, then that connection, that empathy, that allowing of space without judgment for all of those thoughts and feelings is helping them.
Mhm. We could go on for hours here.
Yeah.
Is there anything, we're going to wrap this up in a second, so I'm going to ask
Yeah.
you to tell the good people where they can find you, but is there anything else that you want to say before we do that real
I
quick?
think one of the things that I thought about as well, for our sake and for theirs,
Mhm.
if you can, limit your exposure to like the breaking news, right?
Yeah.
Put boundaries there. Definitely limit it for the kids. Try not to have the TV on in the background or open computers with headlines showing, right? Really make sure that you are careful about what's on and when and what they're exposed to, or if they're on their screens, those limits around what they're able to access. I'm all for parental controls on that. But even for ourselves and taking care of our nervous system, if we are in it all the time, we are probably not doing ourselves any favors. The amount that we expose ourselves is going to be different for each person and their comfort level, both with not knowing and with knowing. So figuring out what that is, where you want to get your information, how you want to get your information, how often, right? Really think about that with mindfulness rather than, or with intention, I should say, rather than haphazardly, right? Where is it too much? When is it too much? And how can I get what I need to feel like I'm in the know, while also not overwhelming myself, and find, those moments of joy. I often think there's a beautiful quote from the AIDS epidemic, and it talks about how sadly, they were attending funerals during the day and dancing at night. And the reason that the dancing was so important is because that was the joy and that was what they were fighting for, right? And I often will share that quote. I don't remember it exactly, so I'm not going to try. But that is such an important piece of it, right? We have to still find the joy, and we can help our kids do the same rather than just sitting in the stuff that's hard all the time, because then we forget what we're fighting for and we're not doing ourselves any favors, and then we can't help anybody else. We have to be okay enough to make a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Put on your own oxygen mask first.
Yeah, exactly.
And joy as the oxygen mask. I actually love that.
Yeah. And that
Oh,
might be small bites, right? It can be hard to feel joyful when things are really tough personally or at the world level, but it might be, a favorite food, a favorite drink, a moment of, just looking outside and seeing something beautiful. It might be spending some time with a pet or a friend or a family member and allowing that to happen, even if it's between tears and rage and anger. Same thing for our kids.
yeah. Oh my gosh, Dr. Halpern, thank you so much
You're
for being
welcome.
here. If people want to learn more about your practice and the work that you do, where do they go?
So our website is playfultherapy.net. There's tons and tons of information there. How to contact us is there. So it's easy.
Fantastic. Thanks for being here. This was fun.
Thank you. Yes, definitely.